It had been a normal day at the Teachers' Centre. At 5:15 I was ready to go home. I phoned John to say that I was leaving. That was his signal to put the vegetables on. I drove normally along the road to Weedon, and there above the road in front of me was this dumbbell-shaped object. It was grey, smooth, plasticky looking. I assumed that the traffic coming towards me would be seeing it, but I didn't see anybody looking up at it at all. I turned into the village, and instead of going faster as I expected, the car was slowing down. Suddenly, everywhere went black. As I wondered where I was, a circle of brilliant white light suddenly shone on the road. I sat there wondering where these lights could have come from. I said, "Good gracious," out loud. And suddenly, normal daylight had reappeared. I was driving the car normally about 30 yards further down the road, and I drove home. And I said to John, "I'm just going to look out of the window to see if I can see anything, and then I'll tell you something that you won't believe."
Every day, someone somewhere reports something strange in the sky. Almost all sightings are later identified, and no UFO has ever been confirmed as an alien spacecraft. But could alien life exist? And where might we find it? Astronomy isn't just for experts. You don't have to have a telescope.
All you need to look at the night sky is a pair of eyes and a fairly good, clear, dark sight, somewhere where there are not many streetlights around and not very many tall buildings or trees to block the horizon. Then you use the bright stars to point your way to the much smaller stars.
This is Orion, the Hunter, one of the groups of stars which seem to form a shape in our night sky. The star groups are called constellations, but if we could travel to them, we would see how the stars lie at vast distances from one another.
You can see about 2,000 stars on a very, very dark night. Once you get to know the patterns of stars in the night sky, you'll probably notice that there are some what appear to be incredibly bright stars that seem to move around over the course of a few months. And these are in fact the planets.
Unlike the planets, the Sun is a star. It generates heat and light, like all stars, and the planets just circle round it in orbit. The planets only seem bright because they reflect light from the Sun. Close in with Earth are 3 other solid rocky worlds. Then come 4 planets like Uranus, mostly giant balls of gas, nothing like our home. Beyond the gassy worlds is one last rocky planet, Pluto, marking the far edge of the solar system. It's so dim and distant that even the Hubble Space Telescope cannot make out its features clearly. If we could stand on Pluto, the Sun would be little more than a brilliant light in the sky. Without strong sunlight, Pluto is frozen, more than 200 degrees below zero. Alien life in the solar system would have to be closer in.
The Earth just happens to be the right distance from the Sun so that water can exist frozen, but also as a liquid and as a vapour. That can't happen anywhere else that we know of in the solar system, and we need that for life. Planet Venus, which is closest to the Earth, is just too close to the Sun. It's very, very hot.
But beneath its clouds, Venus is nearly the same size as Earth, almost a twin planet to our world. Spacecraft have used radar to create maps of the surface. This computer-generated flight is based on real data. Images like this have shown that Venus is much like our Earth, though the hills and valleys are far smaller. But the surface is strangely new compared to our world. And Venus has a weird, slow, backwards rotation on its axis that makes a Venusian day longer than a Venusian year. All this suggests that Venus was never home to alien life. Today it's a hostile place, hot enough to melt lead, let alone a human body. Mars looks much more promising. This movie was made using pictures from the Hubble Space Telescope.
Looking at photographs of Mars, it looks like a very long time ago that water might have flowed there. We see canyons and we see very dried up riverbeds. So we think that there was water on Mars at some point. So very, very possibly deep down in the soil, there might be some kind of bacteria or microbes.
Could these be fossilized alien bacteria? They were found in a rock that came from Mars. If the scientists are right, the fossils could be related to bacteria called slimes, which have recently been discovered on Earth. Slimes can live without heat or light in rocks deep underground. It seems that even on our planet, life can be every bit as alien as science fiction.
There's no reason why aliens would have to even look like us. For example, you could have an alien that looked like a rock on the outside, but perhaps had some living organism on the inside, or an alien that was like a giant worm, similar to the sorts of things that we find living down by volcanoes on the bottom of the sea.
Until submarines took pictures like these, no one believed life could exist this deep underwater. Foul chemicals at 400 Celsius spew from vents in the sea floor. But some bacteria can digest the chemicals, and in turn they feed other creatures. This may be where life began on Earth. The only other place like it is a moon of Jupiter. Europa may well have oceans as big as Earth's, but we won't know for sure until space probes visit it. Saturn has 20 moons. Titan is the biggest and the last hope for alien life nearby. Titan has a nitrogen-based atmosphere, something like the early Earth, but it's very, very cold. One day Titan might spring to life, but for the moment it's in deep freeze. Simple creatures like alien worms might just be our neighbours in space. But intelligent alien visitors would have to have travelled from far beyond our solar system. It's likely that humans will travel to Mars soon, but the journey will take more than 6 months. Getting to Pluto could take 20 years. Beyond Pluto, there's virtually nothing for a very long way. Even light from our sun takes 4.5 years to get to the nearest star, Proxima Centauri. It's part of a multi-star system, like most stars. Looking back from Proxima Centauri, the view would seem almost the same as from Earth, but with our sun as an extra point in the W-shaped constellation we call Cassiopeia. Just another star in the sky.
What makes the universe very strange compared to everyday experience in many ways is that its size, its time and its physical conditions. The universe is huge and extremely old, which means there's been 10 billion years for things to happen.
Our sun is one in 100,000 million stars that make up our local star city. Together they're called the Milky Way galaxy, and if we could travel up above it, we would see its spiral shape, 1 billion kilometres across. The sun is about 2/3 out from the centre. Beyond the Milky Way are even greater realms of empty space between ours and other galaxies. There are as many galaxies as there are grains of sand on a beach, but not an infinite number. The universe has no real edge, but it is a definite size.